Someone's going all teacher on them. There's two ways that you can deal with this. One, you can, instead of doing like a dry brush or something, if you're actually seeing the wood grain pop up, do a stipple effect or a sponge effect. Or, if you want to take the time, you sand down the smoother side of the OSB, and you take a wood putty, and you trowel it on, and then sand it rough. OSB is the cheapest board that you're going to work with. Or you can work with plywood and spend 2 to 3 times as much. So it's going to be up to you to decide on the costs and everything that you're going to do. But honestly, I would rather paint for the effect than go for all that extra work. But if you're going to have a wall that you're going to use over and over, you might want to think about smoothing it out. The other problem with doing any kind of wood putty or after smooth out on it, your walls are going to get moved a lot if you have big walls. They're going to get banged around. You're going to get chipped and smashed and put inside of trailers or storage units or whatever you're going to do with them, unless you have them up all year long. So that constant banging is going to crack some of that off, and you're going to have to reapply. I think that's it. I would like to show you some of the techniques that we're going to do real quick. So, on one of your pages, you have, I want to talk to you real quick about paintbrushes. Even the cheapest paintbrushes can last you a really long time as long as you take care of them. It's really important that you don't charge the brush all the way up to the metal. Charging the brush means dipping into the paint and putting paint on it. If you, about halfway, should be enough for your painting. And if you clean them out every time, and you use one of those combs, those metal combs that you can get from the hardware store, those really help keep your paintbrushes going for a long time. You'll appreciate not having to buy paintbrushes every year. So dry brushing. Let's see if we can. So dry brushing is an effect where you take the brush and you just kind of do this effect on it. Now you notice with this texture, it actually makes the texture pop up. So that's something that you'll need to consider when you're doing it. This works awesome for creating a fake wood grain. I've done that. Where's the wood grain? There it is. It's just a back and forth motion like that. And by putting a little bit more paint on the brush, you can actually get more lines versus just a smear. You guys see that? The bottom ones have more of a line texture to them. And you got to be careful about hitting this edge here because it's paper, it doesn't want to play with you very well. But that's dry brushing. And it doesn't take a lot of paint to do it. The other thing you want to do is rag rolling. We have plastic bags here. You just wad them up, dip them, and try to knock off some of the paint. You don't want to use a lot of paint. And that will create a twisted and folded pattern on it. Up here is rag rolling. This is actually just a plastic bag that we dipped in paint and did that. You can do it with chamois. You can do it with all sorts of other stuff.
I'm going to correct you for a second.
What's that?
The yellow, kind of mustardy color, that was the rag. The
Oh, you're
dark
right.
was brush stipple.
This is stipple. I'm sorry. You're right. This is rag roll. So the yellow that disappeared that we worked hard on, that was rag roll. I apologize. Thank you, Beth. Then there's spatter, which is you take a brush and you just fling it at a piece of paper or at your wall, just like that. Really simple, easy technique. It helps. If you're going to do that, let me know. We'll chop off a brush because it's a lot easier to work with shorter bristles than it is with long ones because you'll just mostly get paint on your fingers. Then there's sponge technique. We have some sponges up here. We have sea sponge and the cheap yellow foam sponge. The cheap yellow foam sponge works just fine. You just you want to make sure that you don't cut it into rectangular shapes or whatever. And if you do have it cut in a rectangular shape, you fold it, bend it, make it work for you. Then there's stenciling, which is really easy. You have a piece of paper or cardboard, cut it out, and you just dab the paint in there, and then lift it off, let it dry. And then there's a wash. Washes are really neat. Washes are, I have one here. Washes are, you take the paint, and you thin it down a lot, and you apply it to the board, and it runs. And then you can direct the paint however you want to. Or, you paint it on, you take a spray bottle, and spray it with water, and let it drip. And it gives you a really cool drip paint effect. So, those are ways that you can distress and texture. How about we, actually, let me ask you, are there any questions so far? So everyone cool with this? Cool. All right. Let's break up into small groups, and we'll work on getting your board set up for you and get you painting so we can get them drying, and you can eat while you're waiting for them to dry. We've got a couple air movers, fans back here, so that we can get this paint to dry. And